What's going on, Denver sports fans? Welcome on into another edition of The Rundown right here on Denver Sports 1043 on social media, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. If you are watching on YouTube, though, do us a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. Really helps us out here on the channel. Kind of remnants of the Denver Broncos season now, looking forward to the offseason with free agency and all that good stuff, and also some news about the Denver Nuggets, or maybe some concerns that we'll try to ease the minds of Nuggets fans with. I'm Anilo Piro. He's Will Peterson joining me today. What's up, Will? How are you doing, brother?
I'm great, Anilo. How are you, man?
I'm good. You know, All-Star break coming up here for the Nuggets. The Avalanche obviously on the Olympic break right now and gearing up for free agency. So a lot of conversation in the world of Denver sports. I know it's not on the graphic, but just a quick thought. We got the news just a few minutes ago before we started. Chris Bryant for the Colorado Rockies starting the season on the injured list. Look, I'm a baseball guy. I know you like the Rockies as well. Spring training is usually an opportunity, in particular with pitchers and catchers reporting, to kind of get excited. And not that this is anything surprising with respect to Chris Bryant, but the fact that we got this news, it's just continued to double down on the fact of how ridiculous this whole situation has been for KB.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I actually am surprised. I mean, the guy hasn't played since April 12th, right? April 12th. We're coming up on 10 months since he's played a competitive baseball game, and we get the news today he's going on the 60-day IL. I'm not questioning his work ethic, but I am questioning whether or not he needs to retire. I assume his body went through rehab the last 10 months. I don't think he just sat on his couch and clearly it didn't respond. So guess what? At this point, he's just robbing money. And very few people are going to have sympathy for the Rockies or Dick Monfort or anything like that. But it's a joke that this guy is still collecting the paychecks. I mean, highway robbery from Chris Bryant. And for him to go on the 60-day IL already, that to me trends towards he's not going to play at all this season. It's just it's absurd. It's passing Russell Wilson as the worst contract in the history of Denver sports.
Yeah, no doubt. Our guy Andrew Mason has a story online at denversports.com. KB is in the fifth year of a 7-year, $182 million contract. And obviously we know the lack of playing time that we've seen from him. He only played a handful of games last year. We'll see what happens with him this year. But some quick news off the rip here. Chris Bryant will start the season on the injured list. Okay, let's hit the Denver Nuggets here. And last night they take on the Cleveland Cavaliers, kind of the new look Cleveland Cavaliers with James Harden alongside of Donovan Mitchell out there running the show. They're up for a majority of the game. I mean, it feels like a game that Denver's in control of for the most part until it wasn't at the end of the matchup. They end up losing here 119 to 117. And I think the bigger question here is kind of what's going on with this Denver Nuggets team? Is it them limping into the All-Star break? Is it a little discombobulated with Nikola Jokic's return after him being out for so long? You look at the standings here and look at the schedule. This is a Nuggets team that has now lost 4 of their last 5 games. They fall to the Thunder 121 to 111, the Pistons 124 to 121, the Knicks 134 to 127 in double OT. Then they pick up a win against the Chicago Bulls, but then last night at Ball Arena losing 119 to 117. Will, talk to me a little bit here about the Denver Nuggets and what's going on over this last 5-game stretch or so.
Yeah, I mean, last night was kind of a microcosm of it. They can't finish in the clutch. And honestly, that's been a strength of them. And that's been a strength of the Nikola Jokic era, is he is one of the most clutch players on the face of the earth. But I'm with you. I'm watching that game last night. I mean, they're up comfortably the whole time. It felt like 7 to 8 to 9 to 10 points. And, you're looking and Cleveland cuts it. And then James Harden hits a big 3 and Nikola has a bad turnover. And then they foul with 0.9 seconds left. What a silly way to end a basketball game. But I think my biggest thing is that they're not finishing. And I'm not exactly sure why, because that's been a strength of this team. But I will point something out to you. I think David Adelman's been really good this year. I thought he had a bad night last night. Nikola Jokic randomly disappeared for 3 minutes late in the fourth quarter in crunch time, and Jonas Valanciunas was in, and the lead just poofed, went away. You can't do that, man. Is the difference between him playing 32 minutes and 35 minutes really going to matter come April, May, and June? I don't think so. You needed to get that dub last night. You were on a cold streak. You got the win in Chicago, needed to make it 2 in a row, sort of put that 3-game losing streak in the rearview mirror. Again, I've applauded the job Adelman's done. I think he stepped in very well, but that doesn't mean he can't have a bad game. And I just don't understand why you pulled Nikola Jokic with 6 minutes to go and sit him till 3 minutes. He has to finish that entire game.
Yeah, and look, I understand wanting to protect the player, right? But we've seen Nikola Jokic log a ton of minutes throughout the course of his career, and I understand the injury that he's coming back from is the most significant of his NBA career as well. But I think you also need to kind of lean on your Iron Man here a little bit. I mean, it's not like Nikola is an injury-riddled player, right? Where you have to worry about re-aggravation, right? Like we've kind of seen with Aaron Gordon to a certain extent, where the hamstring has just kind of been a nagging thing now going on a year and a half. I don't think it's necessarily the same case with Nikola Jokic. And I guess big picture here, like obviously the loss last night stings, but I mean, you and I talked about it a little bit. Jake Shapiro and I talked about it a little bit. You thought that by just not you as in you personally, but the general thought was you're getting Nikola Jokic back, giddy up, we're back on track, here we go. The fact that they've lost some of these games to playoff caliber teams, I mean, the one win in the last 5 is against the measly Chicago Bulls team that has like 11 guards on their team, right? But Cleveland's going to playoffs. The Knicks are one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, as are the Pistons and the reigning defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder. Bit concerning to a certain extent to see how they've played over this 5-game stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Trey's got that graphic handy, but just from top of mind with those last 5 games, like none of them were blowouts, right? Thanks, Trey. Like, right. You know, the Thunder game was frustrating in its own right. But that Pistons game, they had a real chance at the end. The Knicks game, we obviously know double OT, and last night they just blew it. So I'm not trying to go total, nothing to see here, glass half full optimist, but, I'd be more concerned if they were losing these games to contenders by 15, 20, 25 points, not being competitive. You want to get it out of your system a little bit, if you will. So I see what you're saying. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, we could have that same graphic that they're on a 5-game winning streak or 1-4 of their last 5. I would get more concerned if the games weren't competitive. I mean, they obviously got to figure it out. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it is February, but they still do have 2 months. So I think you said something interesting, kind of limping toward the All-Star break. That's sort of my biggest takeaway in all this. The All-Star break can't get here soon enough. And of course, Nicola's going to go, and now Jamal's going to go. But the good news, the hockey players go to the Olympics. They're competing their tails off. The NBA players, they're going on vacation. No one cares. It says they need rest. They need rest. They get plenty of rest at the All-Star game. Trust me.
Yeah, I think I'm with you here. I think the optics are worse than the reality here. Like to your point, like you just look at the red L on the schedule and you're like, oh my gosh, like loss here, loss there. But to your point, they've been in every single one of these games, and I'm also not going to go crazy about losing 4 and 5 to quality opponents here on February the 10th, right? If this was March playoff push, right, rounding into form, I think it'd be a little bit of a different conversation, but we are kind of in this dead zone, for lack of a better phrase, for NBA basketball. And I think the All-Star break will certainly do them well. And I agree with you too about the clutch factor. That's something that's usually the bread and butter of this Denver Nuggets team under Nikola Jokic. I mean, last night, not with, just a handful of other games throughout the course of this season. That is something I'll keep my eye on, though, is because the clutch factor hasn't necessarily been with them for a majority of the season as easily as it was the last handful of years.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you think about New York when Nikola had the shot at the buzzer that went in and out in about 4 different ways. It'd be a totally different conversation if that drops. Even last night, I know it was a bad look, but he did get a look with 0.9 left. It was a prayer, but we've seen Nikola make prayers before, and it didn't go in. One last quick point, though. There was 2 big takeaways from last night that were positives. Julian Strawther and Christian Braun both had very good games. Super encouraging, especially on the Christian Braun front. That might have been his best game of the year. And, it wasn't the sexiest, but that just shows you how poorly he's played and honestly how much that ankle's been bothering him. And I know he met with the media late last night. First time we've heard from CB in a while, and he detailed those ankle struggles. But they're not winning a title unless Christian Braun is Christian Braun. The Christian Braun we saw last year as a starter when they rightfully let KCP walk and elevated him to that role. Last night was the first sort of inkling like, okay, maybe CB is going to be CB down the stretch. So loss sucked. Obviously, we outlined that. The losing 4 or 5 sucked. But there was 2 big takeaways to me, and that was Christian Braun and Julian Strawther.
Yeah, 100%. It's nice to see Strawther get some positive run out there. He's been, a bench player for his entire career. But I to double down on your point, I think Christian Braun, you're going to need him to play like he has the last couple of seasons, in particular with guys like Peyton Watson, Aaron Gordon. out at the moment, and Nikola Jokic coming back from injury. So, again, to kind of double down on Will's point, it's unfortunate that they've lost these games. I think they're going to be fine. It is what it is. But let's see them get to the All-Star break, get some good R&R, and get back after it here in the unofficial second half of the season. All right, it is time to hit the turn, presented by the Birdie Bar, Louisville's premier indoor golf bar. Check them out online and on Instagram at thebirdie.bar. Okay, let's talk a little Denver Broncos football here as well, Will. You had a good story come out this morning on denversports.com. I also published it on social media. Check us out over there at Denver Sports 1043 on Instagram. And it's got some good traction with just kind of back and forth comments from Broncos country. Obviously, I think free agency is front and center right now, right? It's going to be here before you know it. Blink of an eye, here we go. They're signing players left and right, followed by the NFL draft. And then we'll get ready for training camp, OTAs, all that kind of stuff as well. And you and I had a good conversation last week on the radio about positions of need, right? Like, do they need, obviously we all think they need a receiver, they need a running back, they need a tight end. But let's zone in on the tight end position in particular, because a guy that Broncos country, at least that I've seen on social media the last couple of years that they've wanted or clamored for, looks like he's going to be available in Cleveland Browns tight end David Njoku. He announced yesterday on social media that he plans to depart the Cleveland Browns organization. You and I both know that Evan Ingram has been not exactly what we expected in that Joker type role. So for the listener out there, I thought you put a good story together about Njoku's impact. Do you think Njoku would be a good fit for this Broncos team?
Yeah, I mean, when we saw the news last night that he told Cleveland, deuces, the guy's a free agent, so he didn't have to do that, right? He's literally the definition of free agent. You can go sign with anyone else come March 9th, 10th, and 11th once that tampering period opens. But Njoku went out of his way to just tell the Browns fans, like, I'm gone, guys. Like, don't even bother putting a contract in front of me. I'm going to go find a new home after 9 years in Cleveland. I can't believe David Njoku's been in the league for 9 years, but he has. You look back at 2023, obviously had a monster year, almost 1,000 yards, 80 catches, 6 touchdowns. Last couple of years, a little bit of injury riddled. Last season, not much. But then you remember who had the most dumpster fire QB situation in the NFL. It was the Browns. The whole farce of going to Gabriel before they went to Shador. And, the whole season was a mess up there in Cleveland. So I don't really hold that against Njoku. And also he's 2 years younger than Evan Ingram. So if you're in this win now championship mode, a 29-year-old versus a 31-year-old, sorry, in the NFL, that's like 10 years, right? That's not 2 years. That's like 10 years in the league. The tricky part here, though, Anilo, I'd like Njoku in orange and blue, but Evan Ingram do a lot of money this coming season, and his dead cap hit, if you cut him, is more than $10 million. Now, obviously, you got all the Russell Wilson money off the books. You could absorb it if you wanted to, but in a perfect world, you would like to find a trade partner to eat most of that Evan Ingram contract and then go sign Njoku. The problem is I don't know who's taking on that salary and what they would give you. I mean, if someone literally wanted to give the Broncos a 7th-round pick for Evan Ingram and eat the money, I'd do it tomorrow and then go throw a nice bag at a guy like Njoku or some of the other free agent tight ends out there. So fascinating name to add to the mix. And we knew he was in the mix, but he just went out of his way to tell the rest of the NFL last night, oh, I'm really in the mix for a new team.
Yeah, I feel like you don't usually see that, right? Because Njoku's been a really good player for Cleveland, new head coach, young quarterback room. Like, you would think they'd want to try to retain him, just try to be that safety blanket tight end that he has been for majority of his career. But for him to come out there and essentially say, see you later, obviously shows you that he's looking to play elsewhere, could potentially be in the orange and blue. And just to bring it back to Evan Ingram, I agree with you completely, man. I don't think there's a trade partner out there for him. I mean, 7th round, like who's giving up? I know a 7th round pick isn't much, but like I'm trying to think like a team that could utilize Evan Ingram. I mean, you look at the tape from last year, and there really isn't much tape. And I don't mean that as a jab for Evan Ingram, but like it was just disappointing relative to expectations. So we shall see. Let's play a little devil's advocate here to a certain extent. Would you feel if the Broncos were to address wide receiver and running back, would you be okay with them running it back with Evan Ingram at tight end next season?
I mean, maybe, but I think that goes to who's going to call the plays, right? Like if Davis Webb is going to take over the play calling and they are going to effectively utilize the tight end and make him a bigger portion of the offense, then sure, I'm okay with maybe running it back. But you heard Ingram's comments at his end of season press conference. I mean, they weren't the most flattering in the world. He basically said he did what he was asked to do, which, as you outlined, wasn't much. So I'm not so sure the Broncos want Evan Ingram back, and I'm not so sure Evan Ingram wants to be back in Denver. Now, could he have a change of heart if the play calling has changed and Davis Webb says we are really going to focus on making you an elite tight end that we know that you can be? Perhaps. And also, we do have to remember he's under contract and he's due to make a lot of money. So feelings about your role can certainly get smoothed over, if you will, once those direct deposits start hitting.
Yeah, no doubt. So it'll be interesting. And I think the reason why Njoku just as a prospect for the Broncos is so interesting is because I don't really know how many game-changing wide receivers there are out there on the market, right? It looks like the Dallas Cowboys are going to franchise tag George Pickens, which makes signing him a little bit more complex. I mean, I don't think Mike Evans is going anywhere. And Njoku's intriguing because he is a pass-catching tight end who could really make an impact with kind of a, not so great free agent bunch at the wide receiver room. We'll see if they go draft at the wide receiver position, but Njoku could definitely be an interesting name for the Broncos. Let's move over to running back here as we kind of wind down here on the program. Look, that's a position of need. We'll see what happens with J.K. Dobbins. R.J. Harvey, I think, was fine in his rookie season, but I think you want to see some more from him moving forward with the Denver Broncos. But they're going to need to bring in a running back, whether it's through the draft again or the free agent route, J.K. Dobbins among some others. I know one hot name that Broncos country's had their eye on is the guy who just won Super Bowl MVP in Kenneth Walker. And he was easily the best player on either side of the field for both of those teams, running wild in their blowout victory over the New England Patriots. I think Kenneth Walker would be a very nice fit. We know the Broncos have a lot of cap space to work with, but it's hard for me to see a situation when Seattle lets him go. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny, the list of the free agent running backs, the Breece Halls of the world have attracted a lot of people's attention. And then what does Kenneth Walker do in the three biggest games of the year without Zach Charbonnet? He runs wild, man. I mean, he was awesome against the Niners, Rams, and Patriots. And people say, well, his regular season wasn't that impressive. Well, he was splitting carries. And when he got to be the guy, he proved he was up for the task in a huge way. I mean, there's no bigger individual prize in the NFL than Super Bowl MVP. People will argue regular season MVP. Guys want Super Bowl MVPs because then they get the Lombardi and the MVP distinction. So, I think Seattle's going to throw a bag at him. I think they're going to do everything possible. And I think it's going to be hard to pry him away. Guy just won a title. Does he really want to go start fresh somewhere new? Now, that said, could the Broncos overpay, if you will? Well, you've got the richest ownership group in sports, and you've got oodles of cap space because, like I said, the Russell Wilson thing is gone. So I wouldn't hate an overpay for Walker necessarily. First of all, it's not my money. I think we always have to remind fans that we're not the ones cutting the check. And second of all, look what the guy just did on the biggest stage in sports. I mean, we saw that New England defense here in Denver. How'd the Broncos running game look against it? Not good. Mm-hmm. How'd Kenneth Walker look against it? Breaking tackles, finding holes, creating space. Felt like first down, second down, first down, second down. They just kept feeding the beast. So I would love to see Kenneth Walker in orange and blue. I don't know if it's realistic, but again, you throw enough money at anyone, anything's realistic.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think Chris Collinsworth brought this up during the broadcast. Like one thing, not that Kenneth Walker would be a good fit here, but he's not exactly a great receiving running back. And we know Sean Payton loves to throw those swing passes, the screen passes to the running back. So he's a tried and true running back, right? He's not going to be that kind of dual threat in that sense. So I think Kenneth Walker would be a nice addition to this team, but his price tag only went up with his performance in the playoffs. And of course, the Super Bowl MVP nod there as the Seahawks took down the New England Patriots. You alluded to it, Breece Hall, Tyler Algier, a couple other names that we'd like to see the Broncos maybe try to target here, maybe in that second tier per se of running backs after Kenneth Walker. But I think we both agree, no matter what happens, they've got to figure out a way to address the running back, even besides J.K. Dobbins, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun for fans because, O-line set, defense is set, like quarterback set, head coach is set. We really do get to play fantasy football this offseason with the Broncos. Like, what are the three positions, the three sexiest fantasy positions outside of QB? It's the skill positions, right? It's running back, it's receiver, it's tight end. You can rank them in any different order you want, but I expect Sean Payton, George Payton to make a splash at all three spots, whether it be free agency or the draft. In my eyes, probably their top three priorities.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the Denver Broncos do with free agency impending. We'll see if the Denver Nuggets can get back on track before the All-Star break, and we'll keep you updated with all of the news and notes in the world of Denver sports right here on The Rundown, as well as denversports.com and our corresponding social media channels. He's Will Peterson. I'm Manilo Piro. Thank you guys so much for tuning into The Rundown. We'll do it again tomorrow, and make sure to stay tuned to denversports.com for all the news.